Hey, Falcons and NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen, Chris Smitherman behind the scenes producing for us today. I'm Dave Holcomb. Week 18 here in the NFL. Happy New Year, by the way. We did an episode on New Year's Eve, but this is our first 2023 episode. And we have a lot to talk about today with everything that's going on with Week 18, the normal playoff implications that we have every single final week of the season. I can't even say every week 18 because this is only the second ever week 18. But, typical playoff implications in these matchups in the season finale. But then we have this, very unexpected incident that happened on Monday Night Football, which we'll talk about a little bit, our reaction to that, the CPR that was done on Damar Hamlin, the Bills defender. And thankfully, he's doing very well in the hospital. But that has really thrown, the NFL for a loop this week with what's going to happen to the playoffs, because that game is not going to happen. The Bills and Bengals Monday night matchup will not resume. And because of that, we have these scenarios where there could be a neutral site AFC championship, and a location for a playoff game next week could be determined by a coin toss.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I got a few things to say about that. So let's go ahead and do the sponsor, and we can get into the show. But when we get into that segment, I do have some opinions on that, the way that's going to go down.
I look forward to it. I have some thoughts on it too. And I had some thoughts on the NFL scheduling even before the Monday night incident happened. I didn't think, the NFL did any favors for the Seattle Seahawks, where they need the Detroit Lions to win. But with a Seahawks win, the Lions are eliminated. So that's very awkward scheduling as well. We'll get into all of that a little bit in just a moment here. We're also going to have Nostradamus Predicts, and Tom has some prize picks for you today. I don't have any, but Tom has some for Week 18. So all of that coming up in the next hour. Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app in your app store. Use our promo code ASU. That gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So I know the season's wrapping up, but it's not too late to get started with Prize Picks. They have other sports on there as well, other than the NFL. But also you can, use Week 18 as kind of a warm-up for the playoffs. The playoffs are kind of a fun time to use Prize Picks. And I don't think – I would think anyway that most fantasy championships have been decided. Fantasy seasons are over, although I don't know, maybe it's possible you have a scenario where this week is your new championship because of what happened last week on Monday night. I don't know.
That may be.
That's a possibility in a league I'm in. It's not impacting me because I wasn't in the championship. But anyway, I think most fantasy leagues are wrapped up, and you could give a try at the daily fantasy on Prize Picks this weekend.
Yep, absolutely. A lot of fun. Frustrating as heck, but if you get the right picks, and if you took Dave's pick of Tom Brady over 44 and a half attempts last week, you did well. He had 45 attempts. So, we can help guide you on that too. So it's well worth it.
Is that the only one I got though, of the three that I said?
I don't remember. I know that one stood out to me. So I double checked on that one.
Yeah, that one stood out to me too. That was the one I know
Prize
for sure I got.
You can do they don't do cricket anymore. I don't know why they don't do cricket. Is it not cricket season?
I don't know. You always bring up cricket. I do not know.
I know, because it just amazed me to see cricket on a fantasy sports betting site. But
my guess is it's not in season, but I have no idea. I really don't know.
Okay, well, hey, boxing. You wanna put something on boxing, put something on soccer. It's all there for you. So go do it. It's a lot of fun. It is fun. It's frustrating, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I will say
especially when you need one more carry or 2 more yards or something like that, and you just and it's getting late in the game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you have multiple players in the same game.
Right.
And you're kind of trying to navigate, well, Is it good that this team just scored a touchdown? Because then maybe they're going to be running the ball later in the game, and the other quarterback, the quarterback on the other team I'm rooting for, I need him to have pass attempts and passing yards. Yeah, it can be. It's even more like it's the next level up from regular fantasy when you're just rooting for one player.
So, yeah. And you're supporting the show, so sign up for Prize Picks. It's fun. It's worth it.
You benefit with the promo code ASU, and then you support the show as well, which we really appreciate. So to kick off today, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because I feel like everyone has been reacting to the Damar Hamlin incident, and neither one of us was watching it live, so we don't have any personal stories to share that of what we were feeling in the moment. At least for me, I was kind of following on social media while it was happening, or maybe 10 minutes after it happened or whatever. And I was in a bit of shock, not watching, but just hearing about it and then reading about it later. It was hard. It was hard to read about it, to be honest. And I think what made it harder for me, obviously you don't want this to happen to anybody. But the fact that it was somebody that was from Pittsburgh, where I'm from, went to Pitt, where my mom went to school, and was an all-around just wonderful person. Everyone has come out forward and said how great of a guy he is. And I think that made it even harder to read about it for me, because this kid could have played college football anywhere from what I read, stayed at home because he wanted to stay close to his family and his parents, who had him when they were 16 years old. He's very close to his parents, and just in his second year with the Bills, but still, has a lot of ties to my hometown, and just an all-around great person. Made it really difficult to read about, him needing CPR for almost 10 minutes. To stay alive.
Right. And you gotta, give a lot of credit to the medical units on the field. It's amazing with the modern technology, what they can do, what they're able to do for the athlete on the spot. And, that kept Damar going. I mean, they were able to get him to the hospital. And that's the important thing. Because, his heart had stopped, his breathing had stopped. And it's horrifying, and I saw what happened later, and it had to have scared the living daylights out of all, everybody on the field.
Sure.
To see him collapse like that and know what was going on. And
it was like, some of those concussion or a lot of concussion hits we see in the league every week, where the lights just go out when you get hit in the head, but he didn't get hit in the head. He got hit
in the head, right?
Got hit in the chest. So, it was really scary.
So you look at that, and you just be thankful that he finally he opened his eyes. He's responsive. Doesn't seem to have any neurological damage, which you worry about when someone hasn't, has stopped breathing and has stopped breathing for a significant period of time. That he's still, brain function seems to be normal. So everything positive. Out of a terrible situation, it seems that everything is going his way. After
since
the incident, the care he's gotten, and the and just the fact that he's been able to, that he's not going to really carry over any significant damage from what has happened. So you got to be thankful for that.
Yeah, very thankful. Very thankful.
Go ahead.
I'm in I think like a lot of us, I'm in a text group with my Dynasty Fantasy League, and one of the guys, I'm not sure what he does for a living, but he has a medical degree. So he was kind of explaining all of this to us. So, what the ramifications are of, what could have happened, what the prognosis could be for somebody who hasn't been breathing for 10 minutes, and explaining it to us. And that was very useful for me, because I didn't really know. I mean, it was scary, but I didn't really know like the long-term ramifications of what could happen, even if he stays alive. What could happen to Damar Hamlin? So I think other people were in that boat, and ESPN's coverage. I didn't watch any of it, but from what I've heard and from the clips I've seen on Twitter, the coverage was, 5-star with how they handled an incident that, I mean, you're our, NFL historian, Tom. Has this ever happened where somebody needed CPR on the field?
51 years ago, the Lions were visiting the Bears. Chuck Hughes collapsed on the field and did die. And you just wonder, well, he had an enlarged heart and probably shouldn't have been playing to begin with. But at that point, medical technology or medical, diagnosis wasn't as good as it is now. And I don't think anybody really knew about his heart condition until, after.
Yeah.
So, after the examination after he died. But I remember it the day after hearing about it. And I've read about it since. I wrote about it once, but the site, Football Nation, is no longer on the web. So, that article is gone. But I did write about it. And the scary thing is you wonder if today's technology could have saved him. Just the fact that, it was 1971 and, they weren't as responsive. They didn't have the technology on the sideline that they do today. And you got to be thankful for the technology that they had on the sideline, the defibrillator, and being able to, the CPR knowledge. But, I remember that Dick Butkus was the first one to get to Hughes, looked at him and started waving frantically to the Lions sideline to get their medical unit on the field. Well, at that point, Hughes was, his heart had stopped beating. And it's the one thing Butkus has never talked about. The one incident in his career he has refused to talk about since. 50 years, he will never talk about it. It put that fear that it shook him that much.
Yeah.
They finished that game. It was about 5 minutes left in the game. The Lions were making a comeback. They finished the game, but their hearts weren't in it. It was about 5 minutes left. Their hearts were not in finishing that game. So I understand the Bills and Bengals and how they felt after the incident happened on the field. That, they were too shaken. There was just nothing they could do. It wouldn't have been a game after that happened.
Right. Yeah, it would have been a bad game, a bad,
they all their thoughts were going to be on what's happening with Hamlin at the hospital. So, I don't blame them for not wanting to go on because, as I say, I've seen it, where, as I say, 1971, they weren't as aware. They did play, but nobody had their thought in the game anymore. They ran out the last 5 minutes and that was it.
That was the one thing that everyone in my text chat was saying, and on social media, I think a lot of people were saying they can't finish this game, that they absolutely have to postpone it to another day. They did that, suspended it, I guess is the correct term, and then ultimately they chose to cancel it. We have a question from Gary, which is going to be hard to answer. In your opinion, did the NFL handle Monday night's incident correctly? Were their crisis management actions acceptable? And then Gary clarifies his question. I'm not talking about what happened on the field, but rather what happened in the next 48 hours regarding the impact of Monday night's game not being finished. So everything that happened on the field in reaction to the incident, I mean, it couldn't have been much better in terms with Hamlin now doing pretty well. I think did they handle it correctly in the moment? The league, did they handle it correctly? We're going to find out probably a few years from now.
Yeah.
A documentary about this. because Joe Buck had the report that the players were supposed to warm up and they were going to start the game again in 5 minutes. And then, within the game gets suspended. And then 12 hours later, the commissioner, NFLPA president, everybody is saying that's not true. We never thought about resuming the game. So it's whoever you want to believe about whether or not the NFL was going to try to finish that game. They ultimately did make the right decision, and I agree with you that to cancel the game or suspend it and not play it this past week. But in terms of like this, let's get into the playoff seedings and the season football ramifications of this incident. Because the Bills and Bengals game will not resume.
Actually, I'd like to say one more thing. I want to follow up on what you said about the ESPN coverage.
Yeah. Okay.
If you get a chance, search online YouTube for Ryan Clark's comments. Former safety for the Steelers, just incredible. What he had to say, how he followed up, and ESPN did a knockout job. This is the kind of work you would expect from a sports network that does sports 24 hours and knows the games inside and out. And they really, really handled it professionally, and they were great. So, but catch Ryan Clark's comments.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, Ryan Clark's great all the time, but he was particularly great Monday night after the Damar Hamlin incident. So talking about the seedings ramifications from not playing Monday night's game, if the Bills and Chiefs both win in Week 18, the Chiefs play today, Bills tomorrow.
Yeah,
we're going to have a neutral site AFC Championship because the Bills and Chiefs will be a half game within each other, and the Bills didn't play one of their games. The same will happen if both teams lose and Baltimore wins or ties. Baltimore plays Cincinnati. In that scenario, if the Bills and Chiefs meet in the AFC Championship, it'll be played at a neutral site. And then the third scenario for the neutral site thing with the AFC Championship, if the Bills and Chiefs both lose and Cincinnati wins against the Ravens tomorrow, then we will have a Bills or Bengals versus Chiefs championship game at a neutral site. So basically, if any of the top three seeds, except Cincinnati and Buffalo, since they have the same amount of games played, if Cincinnati or Buffalo face Kansas City in the AFC Championship in that scenario where both the Bills and Chiefs lose and Cincinnati wins this weekend, we have a neutral site AFC Championship.
Yeah. And which is ridiculous. If you read Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio had some interesting things he wrote about this week. The thing is, the NFL had a rule in place to cover this. That any game suspended or canceled, you determine playoff seeding and you determine record by winning percentage, period. There's no reason to go through all this convoluted scenarios when your rule was in place. I think the NFL has set a dangerous precedent by changing a rule in season.
Yeah.
They met and decided all of this, I think yesterday or day before, where all this finally came out. But there was no reason for this. You go by winning percentage. And I'm sorry, yes, I know a couple of teams are probably going to grumble quietly about, what happened to them and why it's not fair for them and cry about it. But the rule was there. They made this rule for this situation. Well, not this situation, but any situation.
Really, it was for COVID when we thought we wouldn't be able to play every single game during the
right. But it still applies.
Yeah.
It's still a good rule. It still applies. It doesn't mean that you have to make up a special rule for this situation. You can still use that old rule, or not old rule, but it still does apply. It still works. It's probably the fairest way of doing it. And instead of having to make these different scenarios and different situations, I don't like it. And I don't think it's fair to all the teams. I don't think it's fair to the Bills. I don't think it's fair to the Bengals.
Really not fair for the Bengals because
Yeah.
let's keep going with the scenarios. It gets worse for the Bengals. The Bengals, if they've already won the AFC North. The NFL has declared them the AFC North champions. But if they lose to Baltimore on Sunday, and if they play Baltimore in the first round of the playoffs, that game's site will be determined by a coin toss.
Yes.
A coin toss. So
Yep.
Cincinnati is the division winner. They could still finish as the number 2 or the number 3 seed. But if they finish as the 3 seed and play Baltimore in the first round, they may have to go play in Baltimore
Yes.
Rather than having the home game.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. Just totally absurd. And, I don't know why they felt they had to go in and do this. But again, it plays out bad for the Bengals in almost any situation. So, and I don't know. I just say you had your scenario, you had your rule, and now you're not following your rule. And why do you have to change this rule in season?
Well, I agree with that, absolutely. But also, they're making they're putting in new rules that aren't consistent with each other either. It's like,
right.
So why do we have a neutral site for the AFC Championship in these scenarios, but in these other scenarios, it's not going to be a neutral site game. It's a coin flip. And Cincinnati may have to play a road game.
Yes.
Cincinnati's going to have to play a road game in the first round of the playoffs after being a division winner. And then next season in the draft, they're not going to have as good of a draft pick as Baltimore, assuming they beat Baltimore in the – well, I don't think it matters if they beat Baltimore in the playoffs or not. They're not going to have as good of a draft pick because their record is not as good as Baltimore's.
Right.
And then in the schedule next year, the schedule is determined by your position in the previous year's standings. Yeah. So Cincinnati will draw every single division winner, but yet they don't benefit from having a home game in the playoffs, which every division winner ever has had.
Yes, exactly. That's what you play for. You want to play at least that first game in front of your home fans. You want to make them come to you. And to be able to go in and, oh, God. To have to bring, to have to go on the road, when you're the division champ is just, as I say, it's absurd.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And I don't see why this was necessary. I don't get it. And, I know you got a special situation here, but, you've covered your special situation. You know what you need to do. And there's just no need to go around that.
So, and this kind of leads into the other problem I have with the Week 18 schedule overall. And maybe it's an answer for your question of why are they, why is the NFL putting in a new rule, during the season? Well, if Kansas City, if we go by win percentage, okay, in your scenario, which I think is the correct thing to do, but because of the schedule that they've laid out with Kansas City playing today,
yes,
if Kansas City wins today, and if we were going by win percentage, Buffalo wouldn't be able to catch them.
Nope. No, Buffalo wouldn't have been able to catch them anyway. If Kansas City wins today, Buffalo, it doesn't matter what Buffalo does.
Well, it wouldn't have mattered if Buffalo won on Monday night. If Buffalo wins Monday night, then Buffalo's game tomorrow, regardless.
If Buffalo wins Monday night, yeah, then it makes a difference, right? Then you have, yes, then it does make a difference. But at this point, a Kansas City win locks up the number 1 seed for Kansas City.
Right, but because of this neutral site thing, if Buffalo will still have something to play for tomorrow, even if Kansas City wins.
Right.
I'm saying they wouldn't have anything to play for except the 2 seed, which can be important. If you play the 3 seed in the second round, you're home. But Buffalo wouldn't have. But basically, Buffalo. I think Kansas City will win today, and Buffalo tomorrow will be playing for the right to play the AFC Championship game at a neutral site.
Yes, exactly.
That's what the NFL wanted. They wanted to motivate Buffalo to play New England hard tomorrow, and not just give them a little extra incentive of not just the 2 seed, but not having to go to Kansas City. They don't get to be home, but which I think is just, this leads into what I was angry about even before the Monday night game, was the scheduling that the NFL did for Week 18. You have to have Kansas City and Buffalo playing at the same time.
Yes, you do.
You can't have one of them playing early and having the advantage, and then the other team having the advantage of knowing what they need to do or what they don't need. So Buffalo could say, you know what, it's more important to just rest our players. I don't care about the neutral site thing, or Buffalo could have lost. It's saying they played the Monday night game. This schedule came out Monday afternoon, so Buffalo could have lost the Monday night game, and then if Kansas City wins today, Buffalo wouldn't be able to get the 1 seed. They would be going to Kansas City no matter what in an AFC Championship game. They wouldn't get a bye, so they wouldn't have much motivation at all to play New England hard, and that impacts other teams trying to get into the playoffs, the Dolphins,
it does.
Steelers. So it's just ridiculous that we have this new format where we're not going to schedule Week 18 games until the week before. And, I thought it was more for competitive fairness, but clearly it's not. It's so that the NFL can finagle which games they want to be in these primetime slots to maximize the amount of money that they want to make.
Yeah, and that's all this is for. I mean, when they figured out that they could actually do this, I think a couple of years ago, that they could schedule these final week games on the fly. This is what they've been doing. They try to finagle the schedule so you can get a prime game on prime time, but you might not even end up with a game that matters in a prime time slot on Sunday night. Detroit may be knocked out by the time Sunday night comes around.
Well, that was going to be my next thing. And that's what I was thinking I was going to argue about today, early in the week. And then, because I didn't think there was as many issues with the AFC until not playing Monday Night Football. But the big thing that wasn't impacted at all by Damar Hamlin was the scheduling they did in the NFC. They have the Seahawks playing the Rams at 4:25, and that game needs to be played at the same time as Packers and Lions. Absolutely does.
Right.
And instead they have that game afterwards, and Detroit is going to know whether or not that they have a chance of making the playoffs.
Right.
It's hard enough for Detroit to win in Green Bay as it is. They're like 28-3 since 1992 or something ridiculous like that. And now that they might not be, be motivated to play injured players or guys with nagging injuries, whatever. And that impacts Seattle because Seattle needs Green Bay to lose in order to make the playoffs. Those games have to be played at the same time. There shouldn't. I talked about how much I love Saturday games. There shouldn't be any Saturday games this week. Absolutely.
No, there shouldn't. There really shouldn't. And you're just making things more difficult for yourself by scheduling a Saturday game. You're trying to find 2 games that are worthwhile for fans to sit down and watch, but there's no way you can do that without screwing up the scenario for other teams.
It's hard enough finding one game that doesn't impact anybody else.
Right.
And it matters. You could put Falcons and Buccaneers on Saturday today, but nobody wants to watch that because it doesn't matter. The one game that matters and doesn't impact any other teams is Jaguars-Titans. And I realize that's not the most sexy Sunday night matchup, but that's the game that should be in Sunday night, and there should be no Saturday games.
Yep, exactly. Because it doesn't matter. They're fighting for the AFC North Championship.
AFC South.
AFC South, yeah. I'm sorry. But fighting for their division championship. So that's the game. And no, it's not sexy, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
It for the NFL is selling that game against a Titans team that has struggled in the second half of the season against a Jacksonville Jaguars team that just hasn't caught national attention yet. Yeah. Even though they played a lot better this season under Doug Peterson, and Trevor Lawrence looks like he actually might be an NFL quarterback. Well, that's the thing you could sell, is the fact that you got last year's first overall pick.
Yeah.
Trying to make the playoffs for the first time, trying to bring his team into the playoffs. And there's your selling point. But Jacksonville isn't sexy. And that's one of the reasons why Jacksonville keeps getting sent over to London every year. Because they're the one team that the NFL figures it doesn't matter if they lose a home game every season. They are our London team.
I agree with you. There's more to that than just that. I mean, their owner is not an American, and he likes playing in London, and he's building the brand there of the Jaguars, and but I agree with you that most people say we don't care about the Jaguars. Sure, send them to London every year, and that's why they don't want to put Jacksonville in Sunday Night Football, because generally they don't have a huge fan base. It's just not sexy. But you're right. They could sell it as a Trevor Lawrence party, especially if he clinches a playoff. And so that for competitive fairness, I realize I'm naive to think the NFL cares about competitive fairness, but I really thought they I thought they cared about it more than they do. That's, I think, what's sad.
Well, these Week 18 games, that's why they schedule all of them in division, because it makes for great storylines heading into the final week of the season.
And it was also to motivate teams that aren't playing for anything to try and knock out a division rival, which again I thought was a move to try and create competitive balance. But it probably was more for the storylines that you're talking about, so that people watch the games.
It's all about the money, Dave. It's what can you sell?
You're right.
That's all it comes down to, is what can you sell? They couldn't sell Tennessee and Jacksonville. Probably could have sold Tennessee if they had played better down the stretch. But with Ryan Tannehill hurt, and they haven't had Derrick Henry, and they're fighting just to stay healthy, let alone for their playoff lives.
Right.
And the thing is, what really gets me is people would have watched it anyway.
I was going to make that point too. It's the last regular season game of the season. Yeah. And it is for a playoff spot. I get it that it's not sexy, as we've said, but and it won't have Aaron Rodgers, but people tune into the NFL anyway. They watch it no matter what. And we complain about it, and we talk about all the competitive unfairness and this and that, and how it's, and in years past we've talked about how people have talked about how the games aren't as good anymore, and there's all these complaints about the league and this and that, and yet people still watch it and people still tune in. So then what's you can sell any team in any time slot then, if you're just this TV juggernaut.
Yeah, they can. People watch Thursday night games, or when you got two bottom feeders who are playing, and they still watch it. So, I mean, you would have had an audience for that game, but it's Aaron Rodgers, and it's the NFC North, which is the black and blue division, the established division, where all the old time teams, it's kind of like the Big Ten of the NFL, where we go in and we slug it out in each other's stadiums, and that's kind of going to be what they sell. But you might not have that storyline if Seattle wins. And
No, I think honestly, I think the NFL is hoping Seattle loses, and that's I think if I was a Seahawks fan, I'd be really mad
So would
because
I.
they clearly want this game to be this really marquee matchup, and the only way that happens is if
If
Seattle
Seattle
loses.
loses.
But and I wanted to ask you this question, then we got to move on to your picks. But as a Bears fan, they're really setting up Aaron Rodgers to have another run at this thing, another
Yes.
run at the Super Bowl. And that's another storyline that I think, we can talk about with this. I don't want to say the NFL is rigged or go that far, but the NFL does apparently want to see, they gave Green Bay an advantage by giving them the primetime matchup. And I don't think it's just because they wanted the Green Bay market, Packers market, and Sunday Night Football tomorrow. I think it's also they want Aaron Rodgers to perhaps make a run a surprise run at the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And as a Bears fan, seeing them get that advantage and that, that edge in their Week 18 scheduling, did you have any reaction to that?
The Packers have played great in December. And if they've earned it, they've earned this shot. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't like it. I'm not going to say I like it under any circumstances, but I do understand it. My problem is, you're setting up the Packers with one hell of an advantage going into that game, but Aaron Rodgers is a headliner, and this is what you do. Again, it comes down to money. It comes down to storyline. It comes down to what you can sell, and you could sell Aaron Rodgers a lot easier than you could sell Trevor Lawrence or any other team on Monday night. And plus, you got the Lions who are playing for. Well, as I say, you don't even know if the Lions are playing for a spot until that game kicks off.
Yeah.
So
about an hour before the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Then it becomes must-see television because you got Jared Goff, former Super Bowl quarterback, going up against Aaron Rodgers. Now you got a storyline, but you might not have a storyline. But they're saying that Aaron Rodgers is good enough to carry an audience on Sunday night, even if there's nothing to play for. Even if the Lions have nothing to play for, Green Bay has something to play for.
Yeah.
Right. So, they've set things up for Green Bay to have an open door to step into that playoff spot and make another run. I understand it because, as I say, it's a money decision. I don't like it. I think Aaron Rodgers gets pandered to quite a bit in the NFL.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think he deserves it. He's not a very good playoff quarterback. It's just the way it goes. One Super Bowl in his entire career. That's just not. That doesn't scream elite quarterback to me. But again, they've sold Aaron Rodgers as this elite quarterback for ages. Yeah, he piles up the passing yards, but he doesn't win when it comes to postseason. So, but they want to see him succeed. They do want to see him succeed. So that's why you're in this situation.
Yeah. Which I think I get why they want to see him succeed, but there was no pandering to Peyton Manning when he didn't win much in the playoffs early in his career. And we could go back probably much further back in history. Did Dan Marino get, this pandering to try and to get him another shot at the Super Bowl? And it's our overall theme of today. It's just not very fair. It's just not very fair on a lot of different levels to a lot of different teams. But we move on as we always do with NFL fans. We're going to watch anyway, and we got to move on to your picks for Week 18. So my question with your picks against the spread and your prize picks, do you just stay away from games or teams that don't have anything to play for, and like how do you determine, how motivated players and teams are going to be when you're making your selections for Week 18?
Well, you do look at that. You have to look at that because sometimes you have to kind of read the tea leaves and see whether you believe a team is ready to, even if they're not in the playoffs, so they're going to go out and make a game of this to try and embarrass, a postseason team that they're facing, or do they look like they're ready to kind of pack up? The bags are packed, and as soon as the game is over, they're out.
Yeah,
and you do have to take that into consideration. You have to take into consideration what matters to what team. It's just you can't avoid it because Week 18, you have to know who's still playing for something and what teams take pride in their in themselves enough that they want to show up and play well and make a showing in that final game. Everybody should. You're playing for your job next season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you should be ready to play no matter what, even if you have nothing to play for, even if you're playing for draft position next year, you have something to play for. You got to play for your job. But sometimes that doesn't work. You don't have enough guys on a team that feel the same way.
I don't think there's going to be many guys feeling that way in the Texans-Colts matchup.
I think the Texans and Colts have their bags packed.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. This might be a 6-3 game or something. It's just that's one. But see, the Bears are going to be interested in that game because if the Houston wins, and the Bears lose to Minnesota, who's already locked in their playoff spot, and I think Minnesota still has a chance at the number 1 overall seed. Do they? Or are they locked in?
I don't think they can catch Philly because they don't have the tiebreaker with Philly. So even if Philly loses and Minnesota wins, unless it's I guess there is a different tiebreaker for 3-team scenarios because it could be San Francisco, Minnesota, and Philly all tied. But then you also have the scenario where Philly hasn't even won the NFC East yet. Dallas could be the East champion. Well, and then Minnesota wouldn't have the head-to-head with Dallas either. They lost to Dallas as well. So I don't know the answer to that if Minnesota is playing for the number 1 seed.
But see, the Bears have Nathan Peterman playing quarterback. Justin Fields is hurt. He's out.
Peterman. How is that guy still in the league? Didn't he throw like 5 interceptions in his first start or something?
Yeah. Somehow you get these quarterbacks, you just don't know. For some reason, I put Blaine Gabbert up there with Nathan Peterman. They always seem to find a team.
You make fun of
incredible suckage throughout their entire career, but they always find a team that says, I need this. He's experienced, so we can use him as a backup. Yeah, he's an experienced quarterback. He's been around the block. Yeah, there's a reason why he's been around the block.
You really need. I know you like using Blaine Gabbert as a verb, gabbering as a
gabbersion. Yeah,
you really need to change it to Petermaning, I guess. In his first start, Nathan Peterman was 6 for 14 for 66 yards, a whopping 4.7 yards per pass, with 0 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. 5. I remember that game back in 2017 against the Chargers. I think I was playing against the Chargers defense in fantasy that week. It was just like, guess I'm going to lose this one.
So, I mean, the Bears could still end up with the first overall draft pick. So, but Houston doesn't care.
Well, the Steelers are interested in all of these scenarios too, because the Steelers have the Bears' second-round pick.
Yes, they do.
I know you wanted me to bring that up.
Yeah, I really wanted you to bring that up. Considering that Chase Claypool has made absolutely 0 impact on the Bears since they picked him up, since they brought him in. And it's questionable whether he's going to have any impact on the Bears, in seasons to come.
Yeah, you see the face I'm making, right?
Right. I do. I see it. I see it. Believe me. I understand it. And that's the problem is you got a lot of fans in Chicago who don't have the Pittsburgh connection like I do.
Yeah, you do.
And they don't understand. They're looking at Chase Claypool as this guy who, he hasn't fulfilled his potential, but still has potential. He still has upside. I don't see as much upside.
I think he does have a lot of upside. And when they traded him for only a second-round pick, I was a little like, oh, if he goes to Chicago and he's their number one receiver and Justin Fields becomes a franchise quarterback, he could be a real star. And they gave him away for only a second-round pick. And then I thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, or he could continue to do what he's been doing. Yeah. And then it's going to be like, yeah, we got a second-round pick.
Right, we got a second-round pick.
And that's the scenario that it is right now. But they have one more season. So,
yes, they do. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of ways it could play out next year, but I think, the Steelers basically are getting a high first-round draft pick for Chase Claypool.
Well, low first-round draft pick.
Well, yeah, low first-round draft pick for Chase Claypool.
I consider it low. I guess you can say high. Late in the
late round, yeah. Late first round.
Well, it will technically be if the Bears lose and the Texans win, the Bears will have the first pick in the first round, of course, and then the first pick in the second round. The Dolphins don't have a first-round pick. So the Steelers pick via the Bears would be the 32nd overall pick, which is normally a first-round pick.
Yep.
That for Chase Claypool.
Right, for Chase Claypool. So you see how Zozo reacts. She didn't even want to chime in. She just walked right past us.
Yeah. She's giving us the cold shoulder.
She had nothing to say.
So for you're staying, I'm assuming you're staying away from Texans Colts with Nostradamus predicts because of there's nothing to play for. You don't know who's going to be motivated. I'm assuming you're not even going to go with like a Vikings Bears matchup because one of the teams you don't really know what you're going to get from.
I don't know where Minnesota. I don't know where their head is at.
That too. Yeah.
That's the thing. Where is their head at? And technically, I think they would like to win. I think they want to be in the mix for that, high playoff seed. But if they don't think it's as possible as maybe the scenarios play out, do they play their starters the entire game? Do they start getting ready for that next playoff, for that first playoff game?
Exactly. I think that's what's so hard about, prize picks and picking against the spread in week 18. You don't know what head coach might say. You know what? It's worth it more to me to just rest my guys.
Yeah.
And he could do that in the middle of the game. And that completely changes everything in that matchup.
Right. Which is why fantasy leagues don't go to the final week of the season.
Right.
They
shouldn't. They really shouldn't.
Right. It's the same situation because you just don't know. You can be impacted because the team decides that, okay, we've got our guys. It's almost like a preseason game for some of these guys. All right, we got our guys some work in the first half. Now we can go ahead and cruise down into the second half of the game. And we'll be ready to we won't be rusty when it comes into week one of the playoffs. So that's kind of what you're looking at. Can we just prepare ourselves and not be rusty and have guys with some week 18 game under their belt before we go into the playoffs?
So what teams are you confident in that they're going to be playing hard tomorrow? Well, today.
I say, all my games go into tomorrow.
Okay.
Buffalo Bills are favored by 7 points over the New England Patriots. Bills are a superior team. Bills, still have something to play for. And I just don't want to be any team facing the Bills this week. Damar Hamlin is awake. He's aware. That distraction is gone for the Bills. They're going to be playing for him this week. And I know the Patriots, it's a win and in.
Yeah.
but I don't like it. I really think the Bills are going to come out and just try and wipe the field with the New England Patriots. I don't see this game being close.
Interesting. So do you think that'll happen even if Kansas City wins today and there's they can't
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I think the Bills are looking to make a statement and say, this is for Damar. We want, we didn't win, we didn't play last week, and it's understandable. But this week is for Damar. And we are going to come out and we're going to have a hell of a performance for Damar Hamlin. And it's home. And, Bills Mafia is going to be just chomping at the bit to see this team destroy New England. I don't think New England has a chance in hell.
And you eliminate the Patriots too with
you do.
With
and don't think Buffalo hasn't thought of that either.
Yeah.
Because these are two, very big rivals. Really despise each other. And Zozo, come on. If you don't have anything to say, just stay over there. So I think Buffalo is a good bet for this. By the way, we're talking about Houston and Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I would say if you want to play the under on that game, the over-under is 38 points.
Oh, okay.
I would say play the under. I don't even know if they're going to get to 28 points.
Yeah.
If you want to add that as a fourth pick, I seriously recommend playing the under on Houston at Indianapolis.
I like that. Okay. Good idea.
Because this, as I say, if either team reaches 10 points, I will be amazed.
I agree with you there.
It might be a fast game. They're going to be trying to, the cars are going to be warmed up in the parking lot before that game's over. New York Giants are getting 14 points playing at Philadelphia. I know the Eagles still a lot to play for. Jalen Hurts is actually going to play this week, but you don't know. I would say Hurts is going to get some time because they need to get him. They need to knock the rust off of him for their first postseason game. So I think Hurts is going to see some action. I don't think Hurts is going to see action the entire game. I think Gardner Minshew is actually going to see most of the gameplay.
Okay.
New York Giants have played tough all year. This is not a team that should be getting 14 points. I know Philadelphia statistically outranks the Giants by quite a bit, but the Giants have been playing tight. They've been playing close, and I like that plus 14. And double-digit spreads have not done well this year. It's been a rough year for double-digit spreads. You see anything 2 touchdown spreads, they're tough to cover. And I think the Giants are going to cover that one, and they're going to make it close. Don't necessarily think they'll win, but I think they will make that game close. If Minshew quarterbacks the entire game, I think they actually have a chance to win. And that's another thing. If the road dog, if you think the road dog has a chance to win, take your road team plus the points. And I think New York definitely has a chance to win that game. And I will take the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are charging hard towards the playoff spot. Minus 2.5 against the Browns. They're hosting the Browns. Browns is, Deshaun Watson has done nothing this year. I think the Steelers can shut down the Browns' run game. TJ Watt has been playing well again. And I don't like what I see out of the Browns for, in any scenario in this game. The Steelers are going to be playing hard. I think the Steelers still have a very possible chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Mike Tomlin might not have a losing season again after what we were talking about earlier in the year.
I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to remind you. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Your question wasn't, will this be? It was a more matter of fact of this is going to be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. He only had 8 wins or 8 losses at the time. I know they were like 5 and 8. So I let it go, Yeah,
but they were playing well. all of a sudden, I know Kenny Pickett is not the quarterback you want him to be yet, but he doesn't make many mistakes. He makes some big plays, and Najee Harris is running with purpose again. And
Yeah.
I like to see that. And it's just, they are playing tough. And I think they're going to give the Browns a hell of a game tomorrow. And I don't think the Browns are in a position to take advantage of anything. So,
yeah, the Steelers started 2-6, and TJ Watt played in one of those games.
yeah.
Losing TJ Watt, a defender like him, is like losing your quarterback.
It really is.
Overcome that on defense. And,
No.
and even when Watt came back, he wasn't 100%. And you're talking about, the team was still just maybe okay after the bye week, and the improvement was slow. I think it was because TJ Watt's recovery, even when he was back in November, was slower than what he wanted and what the team wanted. But the last 5 games, he's playing lights out. The defense hasn't given up more than 17 points. And Kenny Pickett's just been clutch. He's just been clutch. Not great stats, but when they need a drive at the end of the game, he's done it. Exactly.
Yeah. So he comes out and, he put a game on the line. He's done very well. So you got to like that.
And if the Steelers win this game, I sticking with the Mike Tomlin theme, a lot of people are going to owe Mike Tomlin an apology. Right.
I think so.
Yeah. All the criticism that he received mid-season and should be fired. And I get a lot of those people were unrealistic Steeler fans and Steeler media. But all those people, if the Steelers win this game, and especially if they win and get in the playoffs, they all owe a public apology.
Yeah. And as I've said for quite a while now, if the Steelers ever get tired of Mike Tomlin as their head coach, I got a spot for him in Chicago. I got no problems bringing him to Chicago and putting him in charge.
He would get hired the next day.
Yes, he would.
After the Steelers would let him go. And the Steelers never will. It's just...
No, they never will.
Some Steeler fans don't know how good they have it. That's
right.
Who doesn't... Those are the people that don't understand how great Mike Tomlin is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Fully agree.
Yeah. So you're with let's get to your prize picks real quick to wrap up the show. You're sticking with a player in that Steelers-Browns matchup.
Yep, sure am. Najee Harris, 72.5 rushing yards. Browns are 25th in the league in rushing yards per attempt. I think Najee Harris is going to get the ball quite a bit, and I think he's going to take advantage of it. So I do like Najee Harris in that game. And I think he's covered that 72.5 rushing times, I think, like 3 or 4 times in the last 5 games. So very, very tough runner. He's made a good comeback this season.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, plus 2.5 passing, receiving, or rushing TDs. So he can be a receiver, catch a TD. I don't think he's going to do that. Rushing TDs, maybe, quarterback sneak. But 2.5 TDs as a passer, let's face it, Mahomes very capable of doing that today against the Raiders.
Yeah.
So I like that. And I like Derrick Henry over. All he has to do is at any time passing, receiving, rushing TD for Derrick Henry. And that's basically, you win on that one too. So we got Najee Harris, Patrick Mahomes, Derrick Henry, anytime touchdown. I think Derrick Henry rushes well against Jaguars. I think he's going to score at least once today.
Just looked up Patrick Mahomes' splits real quick against the Raiders. 8-1 in his career against the Raiders, 26 touchdown passes in 9 games. So, I think with the number 1 seed on the line, I think he's going to have 3 touchdowns today.
So do I. At least, yeah. He's going to have a day.
Yeah, I like all those picks and the picks against the spread too. It's going to be a really interesting Week 18 it always is in the season finale. But, got these scenarios with draft picks where teams are going to end up picking in the top 5. And then, of course, you have the team still fighting for the playoffs. You got, Patriots, Dolphins, Steelers all involved. Steeler fans are not only rooting for the Bills, they're also rooting for Joe Flacco trying to
Yes, they are.
think he can beat the Miami Dolphins, which is a really interesting storyline tomorrow from a Steeler fans' perspective. And then, of course, you have the NFC where you might have the win and get in Detroit Green Bay matchup, but Seattle will have something to say about it too.
Yes, they will. So it'll be fun. There's a lot to watch tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for making us a part of your weekend to get your NFL news and all your NFL Week 18 scenarios. We'll be back next week to preview the playoffs.
Absolutely. Going to be fun. Looking forward to seeing how this week plays out. And yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about next week.
Absolutely. Yep. A lot of fallout I'm sure we'll have from Week 18.
Yep, absolutely.
So follow us on Twitter at TJ Pollen, at DM Holcomb, our sponsor once again, Prize Picks. Download the app, use our promo code ASU, get you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100.
So everybody, yep, you got your Prize Picks for this week. Looking forward to a weekend of football. Have a great week, everyone.